Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet. We'll be joined by Ken Wiebe from Sportsnet in about 5 minutes from now. He's going to try and hustle to get on the show as quick as he can. Like I've said in the past, this is kind of our side gig. We've got real jobs we need to attend to, and that's what Ken is attending to at the moment. But we will get to him as quick as we can. And you know what that means? As soon as he's in, we get to hear that lovely music of his. But in the meantime, if you have any questions or anything that you needed to that you wanted to hit up at this point, now's the time to do it. I think, hello, Phyllis. How are you doing this evening? Always great to see you on the show. Wondering how people are feeling because it was one of those nights. I'll get into it a little bit later in the show about how I feel about this game. We always like to start off with Ken giving his idea of what he felt he saw here tonight. Really kind of a day of turmoil for the Winnipeg Jets and specifically Kevin Cheveldayoff. Everyone, if you haven't seen it, tough day of news. I don't know how much new we heard today other than the fact that Kevin Cheveldayoff took part in a meeting talking about Brad Aldridge and the situation that they were talking about with the Chicago Blackhawks. That seems to contradict the statement that he made earlier in the summer when we were able to talk to him after a statement that he made. Now, if you go back to that time in the summertime, we were talking to Kevin Cheveldayoff, and there was a statement that was released beforehand, and we were told at that point that was all that was going to be said to him. That was all of the comments that he was going to make. I do know I saw earlier today on Twitter, someone had suggested that we reporters hadn't followed up and no one had asked him a question about it. And I did notice that someone responded to that and pointed out the fact that I did ask a question about that. And I thought it was important at the time that we put the question in front of Kevin Cheveldayoff to, at the very least, provide him the opportunity to answer that question. He chose not to at that time. He chose to allow his statement to speak for him. That's what he's done again at this time. I think we're all looking forward at this point to the time when he is willing to speak beyond statements. It sounds like that will come after he talks to Commissioner Gary Bettman, who would like to speak with both he and Coach Q out of Florida, who was the Chicago Blackhawks head coach at the time, as we all knew, and who was in on this meeting that we'd heard about. Now, again, both Kevin Cheveldayoff. It was an interesting timeline because Kevin Cheveldayoff was the last to come out and say something. Mark Bergevin, who was with the Hawks organization at the time, came out when I was in Montreal covering the Stanley Cup and had said that he had no prior knowledge of this. And I mean, whether or not that's true, the report today definitely does not implicate him in any way. Joel Quenneville said that he hadn't heard about it or said something along the lines of having no knowledge of it. And Kevin Cheveldayoff's statement was kind of an interesting one, a lot of legalese in there. What I took from it in his last statement was that he'd said he didn't know about the situation until right before the individual was let go. And he was asked at that point if he knew about the situation. If I've got a take on this, my take is that, and I like to, I had a lot of conversations with Jeff Hamilton while he was doing that phenomenal series that he did on Graham James. Had a lot of conversations behind the scenes, spent a lot of time on the phone talking about this. And the one thing that I take away from Jeff Hamilton's phenomenal work on that topic is that these situations are only going to continue to exist if the culture of secrecy around it exists. And I would say this in this situation, all the men that were in that room and knew about this situation, the way I see it, had an opportunity. They had an opportunity, armed with the information they had about the situation with Brad Aldridge. They had an opportunity to break that cycle of the culture of silence or the secrecy that allows these things to stay hidden and never be brought to the light of day. We know that Brad Aldridge was given the option of either being investigated or leaving the franchise, and he chose to leave the franchise, I guess he would do that, right? Without his, so that his conduct wasn't brought into light. We got to get to a place. We have to get to a place where the people who are armed with this information choose to buck the culture of secrecy and bring this kind of stuff to the surface. And that's my takeaway from this. We're going to bring in Ken because he's sorry to bring it to such a somber mode, but we're going to have to deal with that today. I don't know how much we're going to talk about it during the show. We'll see how much people want to talk about it. But at this stage, great hockey game we can talk about as well. But let's get to Ken here. He's ready to go for the show. Let's bring him in. Ken, my friend, it's great to see you. I can tell that you're muted right now. Unmute your mic if you can, and then let's get into this. You know what? We'll get to the game. I think we got to talk about this situation. That's what we were talking about before we got on. You wrote an article on it. Did a great job with it. I got a sneak preview of it. What's your takeaway from the situation today?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the story is only going to go up in the morning, I guess. So that we're going to have to keep there'll be some suspense, but I think we can get into basically what we were discussing. I think you've handled a lot of things so far. I think there are further questions that need to be answered, and I believe that those answers will be given. Whether they'll be given publicly or whether they'll be given only to Gary Bettman, I mean that remains to be seen. I think that the most important thing is that steps are taken so that these things don't happen ever again. I mean, that's what we need to remember, the victims. And you were touching on it before I came on. I mean, you need to bring hockey to a better place in terms of its culture, where people are comfortable coming forward and things like this don't ever happen again.
It's hard for me when I'm talking like that to bring in the commentary, but Troy Stevens here, and I'd said this before, they had an opportunity. I think what I meant by that was, the people armed with this information could have been, said, I'm going to take this in a different direction. I'm going to be the change. But I think Troy Stevens is entirely onto something here. I think we need to get to a place where people feel it's their obligation to take information like this and get it out. I mean, I couldn't agree with this comment more. I probably did soft sell it when I suggested it's an opportunity. An obligation is probably the way that we should be looking at these things. Especially when we're looking at the health of the young men involved in this. I was watching, Rick Westhead was just talking to the lawyer of John Doe,
right,
and really interesting conversation with how young this person was and the lack of protection that was there for that player in this situation. We got to get to a place where these things are upfront, and where when someone hears about that information, it's not, I'm waiting for someone else to take care of it. Every person who hears about this should be playing a role in trying to stop this in its tracks. And I think we can say that didn't necessarily happen in this situation. Whatever we take away from that, there's been 10 years where people have known the situation, and there hasn't been the kind of action that needed to happen in this situation. And that's what the Winnipeg Jets are facing here as they decide what's going to happen with Kevin Cheveldayoff going forward. Let's switch gears. If that works for people, we can come back and talk about this some more if people want to. But let's get to the game right now, because what a game it was. Ken, your takeaway.
Well, I mean, I think Andrew Kopp probably said it best. The Jets stole 2 points. I think that it was impressive for sure to see the Jets rally with those 2 goals. Looks like they've switched it officially to Nikolaj Ehlers. Must have gone off the defenseman's skate rather than Paul Stastny's. Excellent job by Andrew Kopp to win both of those draws. I mean, he did an excellent job there. The tie, the one thing that gets missed on the game tying goal, Sean, or at least missed by some, Paul Stastny with just an incredible box out on that play.
Yeah, I was going to bring that.
It's not interference. He's just casually in the way. Great job by Kopp to tie up. I think Ehlers actually digs the puck out initially. And
Andrew Kopp pushes it over. It's Andrew Kopp gets the win. It's sitting there, and then he pushes it over.
Yeah, I thought that Ehlers kind of poked it and then kind of went to the side of the play of Stastny. But regardless, the tie up in the win is very impressive. But the goal doesn't happen without the box out by Stastny. So that was an incredible play right there. Ehlers, I mean, we got to talk about Ehlers' most impressive play was not even the goals. Goals are critical to the victory, but I mean, the play he makes on the entry and then to get the puck to Paul Stastny for the one-touch pass for the one-timer to Andrew Kopp, just an incredible job there by him. Really, really nice job.
Well, I got to say I agree with Justin Bunzeluk here. I still think the Jets have to play better than that. I mean, this reminded me, this is a very Winnipeg Jets win, if you ask me. Right. They come in, they don't put their best foot forward. They spend a lot of the game getting outplayed, out-hustled. The shots stack up and up and up. Connor Hellebuyck is required to make significant saves. I mean, the one that really stands out to me is why is his name eluding me right now? Number 46. He had the game. Zegras. Zegras gets that next chance in tight right after he scores the goal that puts them up 3-2. And then, great stop by Connor Hellebuyck to keep that game close. It was one of those ones, and it seems like a cliche at this point because there's so many times I want to text it out, but remember that save. I always want to say, remember that save. If the Jets come back and win this game, remember that save. Well, it was one of those moments, remember that save moment. So you come in, you don't put your best foot forward, you get outshot, you get out hustled, you rely on your goaltender, and then at the end, you steal one away with skill. And afterwards, in the press conference, they trot out the old, you got to play 60 minutes. And that's, we're proud. We dug our way back into that game. I don't like these Winnipeg Jets victories. I know they feel good for people, and it's really nice for that to be a turnaround. And it's exciting to me. And maybe I could like them if I hadn't seen evidence in the past of the Winnipeg Jets kind of falling in love with this style of we're so skilled we can get ourselves back into any game. And then they kind of fall into it where they don't go into outwork those teams. To me, the Ducks were the better team tonight. The Ducks were the better team. The Jets are the more skilled team, clearly, or at least advanced, and their skill is at a more mature level than that of the Anaheim Ducks, who are a skilled team and are going to be a really skilled team in the future. But the Jets outskilled them, went in, popped, got some goals at the end, stole a victory, ride out of town. It's good if you do that every once in a while, and then in the meantime, you just outwork and out-hustle all of the other teams. What we've seen in the past, this is the kind of hockey, Ken, that led to the Jets falling towards that big losing streak they had last year. And that's why Paul Stastny came out and said, to be honest with you, I haven't liked our game for a really long time. This is that Jets team. This is that team. And I just thought they came in tonight with the intent of outskilling that team, and it worked. And what I need to see from this Winnipeg Jets team is they don't fall back in the future on the fact that it worked, that they realize they got away with one. And that's what I want to hear in the post game.
That's what he said, though, right? That's what Andrew Kopp said. I mean, those are the games you have to gut out, right? I mean, he wasn't saying that definitely is not the template. And I'm with you.
But it has been the template in the past. That has been the template.
Not this year, though. Not this year.
Oh, not this year. Of course not this year. But this is the same Winnipeg Jets team we've been seeing for years. This kind of stuff has gone on with the Winnipeg Jets since 2018-19. This started creeping into their game in 2018-19 when they were a team that just turned it on at some point, came back, won games. Think about last season at the beginning of the year. They did it to Ottawa a couple of times where they jumped, bounced back, and got into the game. It is a nice tool to have in your back pocket as long as you're not constantly reaching for the back pocket, because eventually you start going there and the tool just isn't working anymore. It definitely doesn't work the closer you get to the playoffs. So for me, hey, it's great that they came back. They won this game. I want to see the Winnipeg Jets go into LA to play the Kings in their next game and absolutely out hustle, outwork them at every point. Because I'm going to say this. Before the game, I was watching Tim and Sid, and they've got this, sorry, not Tim and Sid, Tim and Friends, where they've got this feature that I like now where they take and do the power rankings, not in the NHL, but just of the 7 Canadian teams. And I was assuming that it was going to be Oilers first, Jets second, Calgary third, Vancouver fourth, and then Toronto and Montreal and Ottawa after that. They had the Jets in fourth, and they had Vancouver ahead of them, Calgary ahead of them, and of course Edmonton in first. And I thought, wow, that's a little bit of a slap in the face. And then I started thinking to myself, and tonight rings true. They pull out a late victory against the Ducks team that outperformed them. They beat the Predators, who since have looked good, but the Preds had been struggling heading into that game, weren't a very good team, and they put up 4 goals against them. Other than that Anaheim game where they won that first game, this is a Jets team that to this, in this entire year has not beat a team over 500. And has allowed a Predators team that couldn't score to put up 4 goals. We're outplayed by a Ducks team tonight that is a sub 500 team. I need to see more from the Jets going forward, because so far right now what I've seen is they were 500 and about to fall below 500 and then stole one away and now are above 500 on maybe one of the easiest schedules to start the season. You take a look at what Colorado's going through right now, and they're 2-4, and I think we both expect them to turn around. But if you take a look at their schedule, it's been a grind of a schedule. They've played Vegas twice. They've played Tampa Bay twice. There's a couple other teams in there that were tough teams. And if you take a look at a team like St. Louis, they've had some really tough matchups so far. The Jets have had an easy schedule. Let's not make any bones about that. And their next 2 games are against, San Jose is showing up. I think they're starting to come back to earth. But the Winnipeg Jets are going to have a meteor schedule coming up here soon. And I need to see more from them than what I saw tonight. I don't think this is okay. It's especially not okay if the Winnipeg Jets fall back into this style, which we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I mean, you can only play the teams in your schedule, and those are the facts. I agree. I mean, we expected 6 of 8 or 5 of 8 against the Pacific, and 6 of 8, and none of them are named Vegas or Edmonton. So that is definitely a benefit for the Jets for sure. Yeah, I mean they didn't play great tonight, but I would also argue that I'm not saying they played well. They had too many. Today was the first time where they had too many of those extended shifts where they got caught in their zone for a long time and were chasing. I would also say that the 3 goals are all they're not structural goals. They were 3 turnovers, right? They had the issue with Schmidt. I mean, the Schmidt turnover on the first, and Dubois, 2 bad turnovers. I mean, the first one obviously was right into the middle, leading to Josh Manson's goal. And I think that the play, the reverse to Pionk was the right play, but Sonny Milano makes a great read, and I think it was a little bit too nonchalant. Dubois has been playing great, but he made 2 critical errors in the game. They ended up in the back of the net. So, yeah, the Jets were certainly fortunate. There's no doubt about that. They got their penalty kill, looked a little bit better today, but they had some turnovers that their puck management was poor. I mean, there's no other way around it. I think that was a significant issue in this game. And from there, how are they going to respond? I mean, that is something they can't make a habit of doing. I mean, you can't have those kinds of turnovers, or if you do, they're going to end up in the back of your net, and that's a concern for sure. Yeah, there were a couple times where Morrissey and Schmidt got caught out on the ice, but it's not only the defense. You can't change when you're in your own zone, so sometimes you're going to get caught in there, and there were a couple of icings, and yeah, hey, no one's saying that's the template for the Jets to have success, and I don't think that the Jets are in there saying, hey, you know what, we can pull these out by playing 58 poor minutes. I mean, that's just not the way that they're acting, especially with not having Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler in the lineup. So Sounded like some news from the Maurice postgame presser saying that Wheeler might be able to get back on the ice in the next day or two. So it'll be interesting to see what the later developments are on that front. Quick one here. You touched on LA. I personally think that Hellebuck enjoyed the workload, and you're right. He played great. I mean, he gave up three, but if Hellebuck's not playing the way that he does, Jets don't have a chance to be in that game and win late. But I do think that we're going to see Eric Comrie on Thursday night. Gut feeling. I know Paul Maurice had mentioned he had only, he had one kind of circled in pencil, and the other game that we expect he'll have is either against Chicago or against New York Islanders when they have the first back-to-back of the year. But I do think that we're going to see Hellebuck get a breather on Thursday night and then be back in the net for that game against the San Jose Sharks. And I do think that Comrie will get his first start of the year. I think the only way that maybe the Jets didn't go that route is if they had lost the game in regulation today. But sort of stealing those 2 points, as Andrew Kopp put it, I think that will allow the Jets to go to Comrie on Thursday night. I know a couple folks have been asking there.
I'm going to bring this up. Paul Adet says, Kenny, can you talk about the tire fires coming out of their own end? Because a lot of people have been talking about this. You touched on a little bit the turnovers, but what are you seeing from the Jets' defense and their ability to vacate the zone?
Well, I mean, up until tonight, I thought it was much improved. I mean, obviously, still room for improvement. There's no doubt about that. But today it was a struggle. It was a struggle along the boards, and I mean, back to an earlier point, you're right. I mean, the Ducks are not as skilled as the Jets, but they are relentless in their pursuit. You saw it firsthand in the game down there, Sean. I mean,
Yeah.
they pressure. I mean, that's part of the reason why both of those turnovers by Dubois ended up in the back of the net. Really strong and ferocious on the forecheck. And the other part that we saw in all three games against the Ducks and Jets, their ability to get to the net once again on full display, right? I mean, they were crashing the net on Hellebuck all night long. So that was impressive. It's a one quick thing about Nash. Let's stay on that just briefly. To me, it's very, very strange that he's already been removed from the penalty kill. I mean, if we were doing the bingo card and said Riley Nash would be on the second power play and on the not on the penalty kill, we would be very surprised, right? I mean, I'm surprised, aren't you? I mean, he was brought in to be a penalty killer. He's a fourth line guy that's going to be on the penalty kill. We know he had the one really good year with Boston where he had I think 15 goals. But I mean, yes, I understand part of the reason he's on the power play is his handedness and because the Jets are missing two players. But it was interesting today. They went to with Kopp in the box. They went to Kyle Connor going with Paul Stastny on the penalty kill. So. We saw this happen with Mason Appleton last year where he had been spending a lot of time on the PK early, and then there was a game where he had a failed clear, and I think that also happened to Nash. One of the games about 3 or 4 games back, Nash had trouble on the failed clear 1 or 2, and then he was and then he's sort of been removed from that point on. I mean, I'm not sure if it's permanent. I'm not saying it's permanent, but it's hard to imagine what are you going to do as a penalty killer? What can you do to re-earn that trust? I mean, you got to do it in practice. I mean, that's not at game speed, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And Connor used to kill penalties, Tracy. I mean, they took him out of that role a little while ago when they tried to just load up their minutes on those offensive situations. But it'll be interesting to see it. I mean, for the folks asking about Gustafsson, just one quick reminder. Right now, the Jets cannot afford on their salary cap to call up David Gustafsson without exposing a defenseman to waivers, and that would likely be Nathan Beaulieu. And right now, the Jets don't want to do that. So, you don't have to convince me about David Gustafsson. I think that Gustafsson is going to make an impact on the Jets this year. I think he'll make an impact on their penalty kill. But right now, he's in a place where he's playing more. But right now, the Jets, even if they wanted to call him up, they would not be able to do that without exposing someone to waivers. So the Gus bus is going to have the folks on the Gus bus can get on, but they're going to have to be patient.
Yeah, you know what? I was texting with a friend earlier on tonight, and his suggestion had been to send Beaulieu down. And I was saying this, so the risk with that is, I mean, and I think, there's enough people out there who have been in our chat room and we know how they feel about Nathan Beaulieu. Say like, so what? So send him out, have him claimed, right? But if you have him claimed, then you've put yourself in a situation where you're going to have to pull up one of your developing defensemen, right? Because you lose that guy, he's your buffer, right? That's what Nathan Beaulieu is being paid for. It's his agent did a great job with the expansion draft and the fact that the Jets were going to have a certain amount of defensemen under contract. Nathan Beaulieu was that guy. He got a 2-year deal out of it. And he got paid. He got a good contract for where I thought he was in the league at that point. But he serves a specific purpose. And right now, the specific purpose that he serves is that, one, I mean, once they've brought him in, they're using him on the penalty kill, blocking shots, whatever. But he's there to be the seventh defenseman. He's there to be the guy who practices with the team, who's good in the room and does all those kind of things. If you expose him and someone takes him, I don't think it would happen, but if you exposed him and someone claimed him on waivers, it means now that you got to bring up another player as your seventh defenseman. Now maybe that can be Nelson Nogier or Nogier but you do not want Ville. I know a lot of people are thinking, yeah, that clears the deck, bring Ville Heinola up, right? You do not want Ville Heinola sitting as the seventh defenseman for the entire year. And if you want to think why, think Sami Niku, right? Think of how he got brought up and just never really got in his career, never really got going. He's better off playing big minutes down for the Manitoba Moose. I know a lot of people say, well, then bring him in and put him higher up in the lineup. Newsflash, Paul Maurice doesn't think he's there yet. So that's not how he's going to use him. So you don't want a player like that forced up into the show just for the sake of being in the show, because he's not going to get used in a way that is going to develop him. So Nathan Beaulieu is there, like you'd said. You can't be making those moves because you move a guy like that, you lose him. You lose the buffer that Kevin Cheveldayoff went out with a plan to get, and Paul Maurice has used exactly like that. Let's get
quick one. Sorry, just on Heinola, Sean. Heinola was injured the other night. Yes, he did come back to the game, I believe, but he did suffer some kind of an injury, I believe. I didn't get the full update, but I think, we'll see if he's back in the lineup or misses any time. But he missed practice the day after the Sunday game, I believe. So what happens on that front.
I'm going to bring this up quick from Sandy, too, someone who's been with us right from the very beginning. Or, sorry, this is the wrong one. Tracy Okranik saying Niku is looking decent with the Habs. Glad for him. I got to say, I'm happy for this, too. I was very vocal, and you and I had a lot of conversations behind the scenes, Ken, where I didn't like the way that the Jets were handling that situation with Niku. I was a big believer, if you don't believe in a guy and if you don't have a future for that guy, and clearly the Jets didn't, just let those guys go. You know what I mean? They're kids trying to achieve a dream, and I just kind of felt like the ins and outs of it. Maybe they needed him to do exactly what Nate Beaulieu is doing, be that buffer, a guy that, is there, that you can plug in if you need to, but your plan is to not plug them in, but, you allow everyone else to stay down. It didn't leave a good taste in my mouth the way things went with Sami Niku here. It was clear to me that at some point the Jets had decided that they didn't want him, but they were going to hold on to him, either maybe to see if they could move him for something, whatever. I'm okay with this, and I know, and maybe that's because I'm not a fan, but I'm okay if you are not going to use an asset. Let that asset go and let that person pursue their dream. And it's the human side of things. So I'm glad to see Sami Niku is looking like he's trying to make the most of his shot. I know it was only one game. He had 2 assists, but good to see him at least given the opportunity to try and make it work at the NHL level. I wish him all the best. Nikolaj Ehlers, you touched a little bit on him, but what did you see from him tonight? Because I thought from even before he started putting up the points, I believe it's a 3-point night by the time it's said and done. He was, carrying the puck with that speed that really backs off defensemen and kind of gets them off their, onto their heels, creates that space and allows his line mates to kind of dive into those spaces. And I just thought that Andrew Kopp goal was the perfect example of that. It looks so pretty, and it's tic-tac-toe, and all of a sudden it comes over. And while it looks like it's cerebral, and it's just three really smart hockey players, and it is making something happen. It happens because they get backed off by Nikolaj Ehlers' speed so much, and it allows Stastny and Kopp just to move into those areas that they are vacated.
Yeah, just just an exceptional effort. There was plenty of debate happening. Was Ehlers squeezing the stick? Was he feeling frustrated? He said all the right things on Friday before the game about not being frustrated. Going 4 games without a point, and then he just went out and did something about it. Right? He went and got an assist on Saturday, and has himself a 3-point night on Tuesday. Which, as you mentioned, doing all of the important things. And for Ehlers, we know it all starts with skating, Sean, right? It always starts with his speed. He's got incredible speed, and now his ability to look for a shot a little bit more often has made him an exceptional player. This is he's got 2 now. My prediction of 40 plus is still alive and well. A lot of folks were wondering if who was going to get off the Ehlers bus after the first 4 games, but he just did a good job of sticking with it, Sean, right? I loved how he handled all the questions about the supposed drought. I thought that was impressive and important, that he wasn't getting frustrated, and he knows full well he's going to go and he's going to have stretches where he's not producing at the level that some folks and even he expects of himself. We know he holds himself to a high standard, and we know he's frustrated when he isn't scoring. He said flat out, I need to produce. I am a producer. I love that he's embraced that. He's never run away from it, and that's what's made him such an important player. And his speed is just absolutely exceptional. And the other part too, Sean, his ability to utilize that speed and create the necessary spacing. You have to be playing with smart players. Like you talked about, you have cerebral players like Andrew Kopp and Paul Stastny, that Stastny had to know kind of know where to go. Ehlers is dipsy doodling and going in and out, and he still found a way to get into the right spot so that Ehlers could get him the puck and that Stastny could immediately find. He knew exactly where it was going before the puck even got there, right? That's the part again. They made an exceptional play look routine, but that's all about the zone entry on that play. And there too, you have to love Ehlers' willingness to continue to shoot the puck. Right? So earlier, before he got the tying goal, Sean, he fires the puck wide and it exits the zone, right? So you wonder, well, maybe he'll be a little gun shy after missing the net. No, he won't be gun shy. He's going to go and make a perfect shot to tie the game. And then Andrew Kopp called it shrapnel on the game winner. But
did you notice that Pierre-Luc Dubois tried that exact same shot earlier in the game?
When he cut to the middle, you mean?
No, he came in off the side.
On the short side, yeah.
He tried to do the exact same thing. And why that stands out to me, and it will always stand out to me, is because of the way that Dustin Byfuglien scored that goal against the Blues in game 2. Game 3.
Might have been 3, right? The
road it was game 3, the road game. Game 3 of that series where he banks it in off Binnington's head and in the net.
Right.
I feel like the Jets have tried that shot an inordinate amount of time ever since Dustin Byfuglien did that, because it's one of those kind of things where it's like if you're coming in and the goalie's hugging the post, and if you have to shoot, it's the one spot, right? So just throw it high at that spot, either right by the post, and if you miss a little bit to the left, and if the goalie's head is tilted towards you, it'll ricochet in there. But Pierre-Luc Dubois would have no reason to be in that. But I did notice that Pierre-Luc Dubois made that shot a little bit earlier. It would be interesting to see if there's a scouting report out there that says, look, if you're coming down on Gibson, and if it's a low angle shot, the only place that you have to go is that spot right there. There you go. I haven't.
There you go.
Thank you, Justin. That's a good poll. Highlights. Yeah, we'll have to check that out. But I did find that interesting. So Ken, you'd said that you think he's on. Well, you still think he's on his way to 40. You said that's alive and well. I have to say, I made a bet with a buddy of mine from Calgary, and we always stack a bunch of Calgary versus Winnipeg bets together. Yeah. And he was so down on the Flames this year. He said, well, I'm not going to give you any even up bets. You kind of got to give me odds. And so he's basically, we've got to bet on whether or not who he believed would be their top scorer in Johnny Gaudreau would outscore, and it was like the third or fourth highest scoring Jet, who was basically the odds that he wanted. And I thought, with Kyle Connor and with Mark Scheifele getting first power play time and first line, you're probably looking at, the potential for Blake Wheeler, probably not, but the potential for Blake Wheeler to finish ahead of Nick Ehlers in scoring, or maybe Pierre-Luc Dubois because he's the centerman. So I got odds Ehlers against Johnny Gaudreau, and I was really happy with that. I thought, boy, oh boy, I'm going to take him. And then Nick Ehlers had the start he had, and I thought to myself, oh no, this isn't going to turn out. So I am hoping, for my sake, I am hoping that turns out that way. Hey, let's talk about Svechnikov.
Sure.
I thought that was a really, really nice, aware play that he sets up, that he goes to the spot, feeds off of Dubois. Again, we've talked about the chemistry of these players together and the potential for them to have chemistry. That looked like a chemistry play to me. Is that what it looked like to you?
To me, and even he said it during the first intermission interview with Dennis. He said he knew that Dubois was going to him. He was the only one in the rink who knew he was going to him. I think just based on the shoulder. That's the net drive we talked so much about, Sean, last year that we weren't seeing enough of from Pierre-Luc Dubois. And part of that, now it makes more sense. He didn't have the power in his stride, right, at the time. So he was not able to put his shoulder down and go wide on a defenseman. But that's an incredible play to find the trailer. Kyle Connor was in the vicinity, but you have to have incredible timing in order to make that play work. It's an incredible net drive by Dubois, but Svechnikov has to be patient, because even when you expect him to pass to you, you don't want to be in too tight, or else the seam is unavailable to have that drop pass on the backhand. So yeah, great finish by Svechnikov, but I think the patience and not getting caught in too tight is what really allows that goal to happen. So I was very impressed by Svechnikov on that play. He's done a nice job. That's a great way to describe it. The Jets have liked him for a long time, dating back to the draft year. We know that. He was high on the board when they got Kyle Connor at 17, and he went 19 to Detroit. They knew about the person, and they were not afraid to take a chance on him when he was discarded by the Red Wings after, the injuries kind of derailed him a little bit. So, again, a lot of folks on a couple of the text chains were suggesting that maybe, Svechnikov's guaranteed to be in the top 6, leave them together. To me, we've talked about this before, Sean. To me, the chemistry, first and foremost, has been with Kyle Connor and Pierre-Luc Dubois. But today it was one of those signs where we started to see a little bit of those minds working on the same page, like they would have been doing a whole lot in Cape Breton. And it's not a surprise that it took a while, right? That's these things don't happen. It's not like riding a bike. Yeah, there'll be some remnants of what you maybe did in the past, but it's not to say that it's going to happen automatically. And we'll see how the lines shake down. When players start coming back, we'll start digging into that and seeing where things go. And I'll be fascinated to see how things shake down. Ehlers, I thought maybe Ehlers might move back in there at one point. Andrew Kopp could fit with those guys. Right here. Yeah, Justin. Well, I do. Sean and me have both discussed this. Wheeler has a guy who has had some success in the past with Pierre-Luc Dubois. He's more of a straight line player. Has a passing ability, so that could work as well. But I want to see more of Svechnikov with those guys. And if Svechnikov is a third liner or a fourth liner that can jump into your top 6, that's a bonus for the Winnipeg Jets. So to me, I'm not ready to hand over the job to him, but I do think he's earned more and more looks. And I think there's a great opportunity for him. I don't see him as only a fourth line player, and I've said that on multiple occasions so far. And again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being a fourth line player. And he can be if Svechnikov is on the fourth line, that means the Jets have a very deep forward group. I've been impressed by what I've seen from him so far, and I think the best is yet to come, because here's a guy who hasn't really got his footing at the NHL level. He's starting to get it, and you can tell when he plays with confidence. We know he's got an incredible shot. We know he's got a big body. He's not afraid to grind down low. But we'll see where he fits in. But I'm impressed by him, and I think that he's only going to get better. What do you think about what you've seen from him so far?
Well, I see confidence from him and I see it building, right? And so that's the thing is when you see that as a coach, you want to kind of elicit that. You want to keep that rolling. I think moving him down to the fourth line does not do that. I just think if you move him into that spot and you go down and yeah, he's been grinding but I just think that I don't know. You said that we'll see, right? You said we'll see where they go with this. That's no fun. I'm going to tell you right now. I don't think he sticks around. I think as soon as Wheeler comes back, Scheifele comes back, I think Svechnikov moves down the lineup, and that's kind of over and done with, right? But I like the idea of finding something that fits that takes a fourth line player and turns him into, as he is right now, a first line player. Or if you want to make that a second line player, depending on how you do it. But I personally think we've seen enough. And I know after the first game, there were some concerns about how he played the puck on his side and that it was maybe a tough jump for Svechnikov to go from the fourth line or from being scratched all the way up to the first line. He's got points every single game that he's played on that line so far. He hasn't blown anyone away. I think he's got a single point in each of the games, while in the meantime, Kyle Connor has gone out and earned first star honors. And yes, let's recognize the fact that he's out on the ice beside a Kyle Connor who was the best player in the NHL this last week. And so he's definitely riding coattails there. But that's what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to take players who can ride the coattails of other players, but then contribute when it's time. He did that tonight. He scored tonight. He set up a play that allowed Pierre-Luc Dubois to score off a tip-in from Nate Schmidt in the last game that he played in. He had an assist in the first game that he played with that line. He's finding a way to make things happen. And I think to your point about the depth of this Winnipeg Jets forward roster, you can limit that depth by stacking the players in a different way. If you take Svechnikov and keep that line together right now as it exists, because it's working and it's continued working, and then find another place to go for Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele and someone else, maybe Andrew Kopp, and then you figure out a Stastny who works with Ehlers kind of thing, and then you've got Lowry going as a fourth line, then all of a sudden you've got a really, really deep lineup. I wonder, Ken, because there's been potential to go there. I wonder if we don't go in that direction because there's not enough minutes to go around based on how Paul Maurice thinks certain players on his team need to be used, the amount of minutes they need to be used. Is that the answer to this question that we're always constantly asking?
It depends who's at full health and who's available, and all of those other things.
Don't depends me. You understand
no,
the question.
I
understand
the question.
everything relative. Does Mark Scheifele need a certain amount of minutes per night, which means that which means that the fourth line can only handle a certain amount of minutes, and so why put talent on the fourth line? Let's just make a leftover fourth line and jam everything into the top.
No, I mean, I think that it was suggested a little bit earlier. I mean, at some point, I could easily see a Vesalainen, Gustafsson, Svechnikov, or some combination as a fourth line, or Harkins is on there. Who knows? I mean, there's all kinds of options. And the other part, folks, Evgeny Svechnikov was not drafted to be a fourth line player. So I'm well aware that he could eventually work his way into a top six role. I'm just not ready to hand him one after 3 games in that role. So
I'm not saying hand it, but
he's earning it, Sean, but he's got to do it for a longer stretch, right? The players the players he needs to knock out of that role have a much longer resume, and that's not to say the resume allows them to keep that job forever, but he needs to go longer than 3 games before we just hand him the job on the top line. That's all. But
if you take him off after earning that for 3 straight games and take him away, then you're never actually truly giving the person that opportunity to grab the brass ring, right? Like, I know what you're saying, and we've heard Paul Maurice say in the past, a guy who's out of the lineup does not lose his job to injury, right? That we know that's how Paul Maurice looks at specific veterans, right? I'm not saying that, now let's take and, throw away Blake Wheeler or Mark Scheifele. I'm not suggesting that for a second. I'm talking about reconstructing the team in a way where you're spreading out to as many lines as you can the responsibility to as many lines as you can. I was looking at it earlier tonight, and I was thinking, like, so you get two lines that are going. You get that top line with Kyle Connor's line that gets that goal, and then Nick Ehlers' line shows up, and those two lines go and win you the game. Well, if you put yourself in a situation where you've got a third line that is capable of doing that, doesn't it just stand to reason that you give yourself more opportunities to win games when certain players aren't going?
Sure. I mean, the Jets can't. That's probably the best byproduct of what's been happening. The Jets had both lines going today. They got important goals from the Ehlers line, and they also got an important goal from Svechnikov, right? I mean, that's part of the deal. I mean, for me, uh, yeah, they want to have depth. They want to have guys that can score. You want to have Vesalainen scoring his first. You want to have Jansen Harkins contributing. You want to have Lowry scoring like the other night. I mean, no one's saying you just stack the top line and rely on them. The Jets can't win if they don't have more guys going on more nights. So we're on the same page there. That's nothing new in terms of the configurations. I mean, let's see how it develops. I mean, we still need to see what's happening with Adam Lowry's line. I mean,
Good point.
what are they going to? I mean, that's why too. I think Svechnikov would be great with Adam Lowry. So then you have a great natural finisher on the right hand side. So I mean, all I'm saying is that the I don't see the only opportunity for Svechnikov to thrive being with Dubois, and I am very familiar with how they played together. And if they continue to play together, and if that's the best place for them, right on. But it takes time, and it's the same as before. I mean, the Jets are doing great things with Andrew Kopp and with Pierre-Luc Dubois at center. I mean, we were also a little bit surprised that it was Kopp and not Stastny at center. So they did a great job with that. That's not to say that you don't want to ride Mark Scheifele when he comes back and when he comes, he's a first line player. I mean, the Jets are a better team with Scheifele at center and with Dubois rolling. I mean, that's just the way that it goes. So, it's the beautiful part about hockey. I mean, there's lots of options for the Jets, and they need to explore those options, right? That's part of the deal. So,
I guess I'm going to come back to my original point because I feel like we kind of lost it. But I wonder if there's just a belief within Paul Maurice that, in order for Mark Scheifele to feel right, he needs a certain block of minutes a night. And I wonder if that block of minutes means that essentially, other than last year, I take a look at the Winnipeg Jets teams, and the fourth line is just basically an also ran. It's a line that you throw out there every once in a while to fill a little bit of time. You're not expecting a lot from them. Last year, that switched when they picked up Trevor Lewis and Nate Thompson. But so I think we lost you here, Kenny. Yeah, that kind of changed last year a little bit, but for the most part, the Jets really don't rely on a fourth line. And I'm wondering, what's that?
they need to get a fourth line involved. Sorry, I am on your side 100% on this. That's a drum that I've been happy to bang. They need to play their fourth line more. You can get away with it in the first month, but when you have a busy month, you need four lines rolling. And right now, the Jets, they can't even roll four lines because they don't have four lines available to them on their roster. But I'll be curious to see how long that goes once they get their full lineup back.
Well, okay, you brought up something interesting because you said when they have a heavy month, they need that. And if we go back to what Paul Maurice did last year in that stretch of hockey, which was the craziest stretch of hockey that we've seen the Winnipeg Jets go through probably ever, he really did lean on those fourth lines. But Comet says it right here. You need four lines to win the cup. And I guess this is what I keep coming back to. The Winnipeg Jets, if you need four lines to survive a tough month, you need four lines to survive the playoffs. So then why would we only be using that fourth line in reserve to go and handle a tough month or the playoffs, why wouldn't it just become part of your team and who you are, right? Because I'll say this, and I just keep coming back to this. The Montreal Canadiens absolutely tuned the Winnipeg Jets last year. And a lot of people like to point to Scheifele being out of the lineup as the reason it went in that direction. I've been I've said numerous times before, I don't think it's that simple. I did not see a path to the Winnipeg Jets beating the Montreal Canadiens last season. And the Montreal Canadiens had that. They had that 4-line depth that they used. So if you can create, this is the point I'm getting to. If you can create a 4-line team that is able to play like that, why not have that team play like that all year and find a way to manage minutes so that you can have your team be that, rather than asking your 4th line to arrive in a tough month or in the playoffs at some point. It just that does not make sense to me.
Well, I mean, right now they don't even have a 4th line, Sean. They have 2 guys that they're rolling through, right? I mean,
well, I know.
When we have evidence, when we have the ability to have the evidence to see if it's going
well, we didn't see it in the first couple of games.
No, you're right, and that's what we said. You can get away with it when your games are spread out by 2 days in between, but you can't get away with it when you have a number of games in a row or playing back-to-back or things of that nature. So,
man, when did we start getting like porno sites advertising in our chat room? I hop on those pretty quick, but hey, Kenny and Renny are moving up in the world when you got that kind of stuff going on. You talked about the 3rd line a little bit. I wanted your take on Christian Vesalainen, who at times tonight I thought looked really good, and then other times looked like the Christian Vesalainen that, for a second at the beginning of the game, I thought, okay, he scored that last goal. Confidence is high. He's flying out there. He started using that big body. He started protecting the puck on the board, started looking like he had speed. And then by the end of the game, I thought I saw a lot more flashes of the Christian Vesalainen that I think has not done enough to earn his spot on the team this year. I saw more of that than I did of the new Christian Vesalainen that I thought was going to emerge after he scored that goal.
There's another one. You got to spam.
I'll get
spammer.
I'll get it.
Yeah, I think there were a couple of really good shifts from Vesalainen. I think he went to the net once really well. Created a bit of an opportunity for his line mate there, but it felt like that 3rd line didn't get into a rhythm or a routine today. And some folks were talking about the breakout struggles, and I think that line was on. They were on a few other. There's another one now. You gotta keep your trigger finger itchy.
It hasn't. There it is.
Maybe this is what happens when we're on after 1 a.m. Someone's telling us it's time.
No, we were here. We were here last year. We were going on till 3 a.m. last year.
Oh,
I don't know.
That's true. Anyway, so I didn't think the 3rd line really got much going in terms of being in a rhythm. That's sort of what I say. I mean, I'm not. Neither was I. I thought that he played well on Saturday. One of the better games he's played. We always know with a young player, it's going to be about being more consistent, and I think that's natural. So this is what I'm saying. Again, I think that it'd be worth. I've talked about this before. I think that Vesalainen we talk about chemistry all the time, Sean. So there is some chemistry with Vesalainen and Gustafsson. So at some point, I want to see them together. Oh, I don't care if you call them your 3rd line or your 4th line, but that's a way to distribute your minutes. So if you put those 2 guys together, you put Harkins, Lowry, and Svechnikov, and then you can have Gustafsson with Vesalainen, and I don't know if it's Riley Nash or whoever works his way into that mix, but at some point we'll see that, I would imagine. But just now it's a matter of being patient and seeing what happens there. But long story short, no, I mean, if you're Paul Maurice, you hope that Vesalainen scores again. I mean, you see another shot, right? Sean, that last practice before they got on the road, we saw Christian Vesalainen walk in on the slot, go bar down on Connor Hellebuck. So you think that's a byproduct of a player who just scored his first NHL goal, and then that's how he feels after, and then now he's always looking for a shot, right? That's the manual you're hoping to find. But it continues to be a work in progress, which is natural for a young player. So I'm not going to get fired up when it goes great. I'm not going to get fired up when it goes mediocrely, I guess. That's my new word for today. It's not a word.
Mediocrely. I love it. I love it. So how about Jansen Harkins? Because I would say mediocrely is a good, if we're going to use that, is a good way to kind of describe what I've seen from him lately. He's the guy that, last season, before the season started, I had said I thought he was going to be the player taken by Seattle, by the Seattle Kraken. He never really got off the ground last year. I've been waiting for this kid to get a chance to kind of show what he can do. After that brief flash we had 2 seasons ago, where he even played a game up on the top line with Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler. I gotta say, I feel like I've noticed him less and less and less as the season has gone on.
Yeah, I mean, for me, actually, I mean, today I don't think he had a great game, but I disagree. I thought that he was very noticeable on Saturday night and maybe the game before on Thursday. I thought that he was very effective on the forecheck. Thought he had a couple of good scoring chances, but yeah, he's a guy who's talented. So I think that that line, like I said, we feel like their identity has been lacking to a certain degree. Obviously, Adam Lowry scored a huge goal for the Jets in response after that poor start, giving up a goal just 75 seconds in. But we're not sure what they are yet. They're not going head to head. They're basically trying to win the matchups with the third or fourth line. And right now I think there's more to give for that line. I believe. I think you have the constant in Adam Lowry down the middle. The wingers are going to have to find their way, and we've talked about this before. Vesalainen is still trying to get comfortable on the right side. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not an easy transition, and I think that's been a factor. I think there was the one play where he tried that high flip through the neutral zone, and it kind of got the Ducks going back the other direction again. So I would like to see. I think there's more to give from those guys, and I'm not saying you should put the blender on and see who else gets into the mix. I think there's potential for those two guys to be good together with Lowry in the middle, but right now they're not really cruising, I guess, if you will. So,
well, winning cures all is kind of the way that it feels, but I do have to say that third line, and I mean, I'll couch this by saying they showed up and got the Jets back into the game on Saturday against the Nashville Predators when Adam Lowry scored that nice goal. But that, and again, I'll go back to saying all that we're seeing here, I'm not saying that it's an illusion, but the Jets have all their wins this season against teams below 500 in a pretty lax schedule, to not lax schedule, but this is a schedule that the Jets looked at the beginning, and I think that we looked at and thought this is the opportunity for the Jets to make hay, and they're making hay now. They've got 3 straight victories, points in 4 straight games. But I take a look at this team and I think that, they've got a lot more to show. And that's one of the areas where they've got more to show is on that third line, which I think is going to be important because if they're not going to restructure this team the way that we're talking about, and I don't think they will, Ken, I think they love to go with a super souped up top 6, then some kind of Lowry line to use for the third line. And then kind of a thrown together fourth line that gets a little bit of time here and there. I think they're going to need to find a better mix with Lowry. And I don't know, maybe Stastny's clearly the guy who's going to go back down there. I just don't know how that fits. I don't know how heavy that line becomes if you're putting Vesalainen in there. Does he bring a heavy element to the game? I'm not sure that he does. But that is an area I think that they're going to have to figure out before we get too deep into the season here. Ken, is there anything you'd like to add before we shut this thing down?
yeah, I mean, one quick one on the defense. It just seems like today was a night. I thought the defense had some issue. I mean, it's the team defense struggled. I think part of that was because they spent way too much time in the defensive zone. And again, I think that Neil Pionk is still adapting to a new partner. I think Pionk has shown us in the first 2 years that he is an excellent player. I think right now the reads have not been as natural as we have come to expect from those guys. I think that there's still, very much there's potential in that pairing with Brendan Dillon, but I feel like there have been some. It hasn't gone as smoothly as maybe I expected it, considering they've spent a little bit more time now. But I think it's just a matter of getting settled in. And the one thing, again, we're not looking to make excuses for guys, but when a player signs a big ticket and a long-term deal, to me it's similar to after Josh Morrissey signed his deal. Subconsciously, I think you're trying a little bit too much, and Pionk has still put up the points. There's nobody's arguing with that. But I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Pionk pairing was one of the shutdown pairings for the Jets at times, especially against McDavid at times. So. I think he's going to find his way. I think there have been some. I mean, I think it's been a bit of a slower start when it comes to the defending area for Neil Pionk, but I mean, he still found a way to put up points, and I think that he's only going to get better as the year goes along here.
Let's shut her down. And I want a couple things before we do go. We are 2 days away from the return of our long-form Kenny and Renny shows. And boy, have we got a good show for you. This is going to be news to Ken because I haven't confirmed this with him yet. But Frank Saravelli is going to come on the show, and so is Jim Hewson, who's recently retired. That is a heck of a good show coming out of the gate. Lots to talk about with those two. That's going to be an absolute ton of fun. I guess just a reminder now for everyone who stayed up this late. Can't believe I'm always surprised when I look at the numbers that we get on our show at this time of night. 1:15 in the morning. Thank you so much for spending your time with us and putting off going to sleep and Winnipeg Sports Talk up here. I was going to say one of these times, if he's hanging around, we should have Remus just hop in the show and join us and talk here. I mean, someone had suggested it. We probably should have done it. We could just bring in Scotty and Remo and have a little bit of a conversation with them. Love spending time with both those two. It's great stuff. And one last thing, if you like what you see here, make sure that you express it. Go and click like. If you're there and if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do that as well. It just means that we get to spend more time with you going forward if you make sure that you do all the things that put us in front of you. We really appreciate that. Thank you, everyone. Night after a great, surprising Jets victory, we had a great, surprising conversation afterwards. Thank you so much. And we will see you next will be the big show. So come check us out on Thursday, 3:00 after Winnipeg Sports Talk. And then we'll have Kenny and Renny that night after the Kings game. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.